Okay, so my talk's about using messaging when selling your game. And so we've all seen a movie trailer and then a movie, and of course they don't match up. And, oh, okay, here we go. Okay, so if you've got a great trailer but a bad movie, then everyone's going to be disappointed. But if you've got a great movie and a bad trailer, no one's going to go see it. And this applies to games. Proper messaging is vital. And so when I say messaging, I mean your trailer, the store description, your press release, how you talk about your game in interviews. So when you're reaching the right audience, you want to funnel gamers in that are prone to liking your game, and you want to steer away those who aren't. So when you do this, you get proportionately more happy customers and a more positive reception. So this all sounds like common sense, but it's something that you really need to allocate a lot of time and thought into. You should put as much care into your messaging as you do into the game itself. Reception fuels reception, so this is one example of why it's so important. Positive reviews are contagious, as are negative ones. So the more positive reviews you get, the more positive reviews you will get. Reviews fuel public perception, and the public perception frames how people enter your game. So when they go into it, if all the reviews have been unanimously positive, if they've been playing for 20 minutes and it still hasn't grabbed them, they're going to give it the benefit of the doubt. They're going to keep playing. If they're playing Grand Theft Auto 4 and they're having to do some stupid bowling mission, they're going to gloss over that and just whatever. If it's an indie game with a mixed reception or they know nothing about it, and they're going to be like, just, this bowling mission is the worst thing in the world. So some examples of when you're crafting your messaging. You want to accurately describe what your game is. And when you're talking with press, the best way to do that is say, it's like game A meets game B with X, if you can. Now, for liability reasons or whatever, in the public, you're not necessarily going to say, hey, it's like this game and that game, but when you're talking to the press, that's exactly how you want to do it. That's easy to digest, and they'll get it immediately. How it plays. So, is your game open-ended or linear? Is it story-heavy or gameplay-heavy? This stuff might not be conveyed in a trailer, so you need to make that very clear. The theme. So, for example, if your game is a nostalgic send-up, nostalgia can mean infinitely different things to different people. And if you just say it's a nostalgic send-up, that seed of an idea will just grow with people's imagination in their mind, and they'll build up what they think that means. And when they play your game, that might not match up. So you need to be really clear exactly, well, what type of nostalgia is it, and be specific. And you also want to think about the target market. So if the game 1001 Spikes recently came out and nailed this. If you have a super difficult game, you need to clearly market it as difficult. People will see that and they'll be ready for the challenge. If you don't market it as a difficult game and it is a difficult game, then you're going to end up with a lot of players who buy it and become very frustrated. And finally, dictionary definitions really matter. So for example, the word stealth has a specific gameplay definition. People think of that and think of games in a specific way. So for example, the game Monaco came out, before it came out with preview builds and whatnot, they kept using the word stealth. So people would enter the game and try and play it like a stealth game, and it just wouldn't work the way they intended, and they weren't having fun, and they were getting frustrated. They realized that they weren't making the wrong game. They just should stop using the word stealth. And once they got rid of that word, people were entering the game the way it was meant to be played and enjoying it a lot more. So you have your vision. When you created your game, you had your idea and you built it. You know what the game is. But that's not necessarily how others see it. You have your lens in which you view your game, and others have their lens, and it might not match up. So when you deal with this, you may either have to embrace how they're viewing your game and run with that and use that to craft your messaging, or realize, you know what, I really would wish that they would put more emphasis when they're playing my game on this aspect. So you need to create messaging that steers them into viewing and focusing on that aspect of the game. So when you're writing the messaging, you need to spend a lot of time, like I mentioned before. It can't just be an afterthought. And you want to iterate throughout production and even post-launch. So throughout the entire production cycle, you should be coming up with your elevator pitch, coming up with how you're describing your game for the store page. And even post-launch, if you realize, you know what, people have been emphasizing these other things and I want to steer them towards this or that, then you can continue to update it post-launch. And it can't be written in a bubble. So just like playtesting, you really do need to use playtesting to your advantage. And I'm talking 100 players, 200 players. It sounds ridiculous, but as many as you can have them play your game and figure out, whoa, what do they think the core pillars of this game is? And use that to craft your messaging. So a final thought, which is related, is a heads up on your expectations, which is remember that your day one players are prone to liking your game. So you're going to have way more positive reception day one than later on, because later that week, people who weren't necessarily prone to liking your game are going to hear all this great stuff everyone else is saying. They're going to look at it, oh, I don't like that type of game. Oh, that looks like a terrible game. And you might be put back. You might think, oh no, people hate my game. But that happens to every game. Every developer I've talked to, they've said, oh yeah, it's the same cycle. So just when you know that that's coming, it's not going to affect you as much. If you don't know that that's coming, it's going to seem like the whole world hates your game. So when you see it coming, don't sweat it. And a final thought, which I thought of when Dan was doing his talk, was that the less people pay for your game, the harder it's going to be to funnel players in who are prone to liking it. You're going to have people that aren't prone to liking it that are thinking, oh, it's 99 cents, I'll just pick it up. And so you need to think about that. For example, if your game's out on Steam and you want to have all those thumbs up Steam reviews, the cheaper your game is, the more potential thumbs down you're going to get. So that's something to think about. The cost of your game will affect perception. And that's it. Thank you.